His parents came up, and he seemed plagued by fear. Fear of their reaction. I woke up to my phone ringing. There had been an accident. I just want to know this God that you serve. Whoever he is, I just want to give myself to him. How do I do that? This part of my story is full of God's miracles. Miracles that prove God must exist and that he listens to the prayers of those who love him. So without further ado, let's get into it. So my mom and I arrived back in Canada. We pulled into the driveway. I was excited to be home to see my dad and my sister. It had been many months. The reunion was sweet. But as soon as I was in my room alone that evening, unpacking and getting ready for bed, all of a sudden a chokehold of panic gripped me. It's like something in me shifted as I closed the bedroom door. I couldn't understand why it hit me so hard, but I think it had something to do with the finality of the situation I now found myself in. I had left California and I was home to stay. But I was not the same girl that had left almost a year before, and out of an abundance of caution had run home to protect myself somehow. The panic came from this one thought that squeezed my heart so tightly it felt physical. And that was, what have I done? What if I lose him now? So I picked up my phone and sat on the floor as I dialed his number, trying to breathe while I waited for him to pick up. Well, the conversation went something like this. He picked up, "Hello? Sam? Hey, how was the rest of your trip?" "It was good. I need you to tell me something." "Okay, what's that?" "Sam, I'm afraid I've made a mistake. Now that I'm so far away from you, No, Lori, you are not going to lose me. Don't worry. And remember, I'm coming to visit." Relief hit me in waves as we talked. After all, we had built a friendship with hours and hours of talking on the phone, and in fact, obviously had fallen in love that way too. And it became clear to me during this call that we were capable of staying close this way. True to his word, Sam planned to visit as soon as he could make it feasible with work and everything. And I was pleasantly surprised when he wanted to make it a decently long visit of 10 days, I believe it was. It was 10 days that would change everything. Well, I was so excited, and my parents were supportive and loving, even arranging for Sam to stay with church friends, though they lived a bit of a drive away. But all these pieces of the puzzle seemed to fit together as he prepared to come. He was very willing to stay with our church friends, which said a lot because he probably anticipated that they planned to evangelize him. Finally, the day came for him to arrive by plane. The airport was a long drive from our home, but I enjoyed every moment of my solitary drive to pick him up, the anticipation building. Obviously, I made sure I looked very put together, very pretty. So Sam and I would go through this airport many more times after this. Because of that, I don't remember the details of our greeting that first time. I'm sure it involved an embrace of some sort. I definitely remember the excitement and the stomach-turning nervousness that overtook me. And I also remember that there is a Denny's not that far from the airport. So if memory serves me, that first time was one of the times that we stopped at that particular eatery to grab a bite post-flight. And I'm pretty sure I remember not being able to eat very much. I remember the feeling of sitting across from him wanting me to move next to him, his arms closing around me, and the noise in the restaurant fading away in that moment. And this is where the visit began to take on a life of its own. In those moments of just blissfully being in each other's company, we had no idea what was in store for us during this particular trip. It has been a long time, and there were many, many visits during our long-distance relationship. So I don't remember every detail of that particular one, except that it was life-altering, heart-shifting, climactic, and yes, I am about to tell you why. Because what happened that week changed the entire trajectory of our relationship. And this next detail is important. Since Sam was going to be staying with friends, and I didn't want him to feel stranded, especially since our friend's place was a little distance from our house, so the plan was for him to have my car. That first night, he drove me home, and I think he briefly met my dad and my sister. I can't actually remember if my dad was in bed. Anyway, at some point on this trip, he met my dad, and it went well. So I do remember wanting to show Sam a bunch of my favorite places. Apart from not staying together at night, it felt like a bit of a vacation. He was there for 10 days, and we were going out here and there and everywhere, sightseeing. I don't even remember all the places. It felt a little bit like an episode of The Bachelor, with fun one-on-one dates and being blissfully in love. And then there was that shadow, that same shadow that I had sensed in him in my car in California. It had followed us, and I knew it. But I didn't press him about it, and yet that shadow would reveal itself soon enough. So this is where I started praying for him more specifically, about that shadow, but more importantly, for his salvation. I shared a lot about my faith with him, as I had many times over the phone before we met. I wasn't shy in telling him that God was calling him. I shared testimonies with him about the many times that the Lord had proven himself to me, even memories from childhood, particularly one where God had sent an angel to me to comfort me in a fear. So yes, I evangelized that man, I dare say, as no one has ever evangelized before, for two very important reasons. The first was because the stories Sam told me of his past told me of a little boy who needed a lot of healing and whose soul needed a kind of comfort I knew only the Lord could give him. And looking back, I now realize I didn't know how true that was. And the second reason was that I loved him, and I wanted that matter of being unequally yoked to be taken care of. So I evangelized, and I prayed, and he was staying with a family who would do the same. So one night, we went out on a fancier dinner date, possibly for my birthday. I don't remember. What I do remember is that it was mostly enjoyable, except there were more shadows creeping in. And this time, the shadows had a voice. His feelings for me were not something I doubted. In fact, the sense I had was that he wanted me desperately, even though he feared that he wouldn't be allowed to have me. His parents came up, and he seemed plagued by fear. Fear of their reaction to his loving a white girl. Not just a white girl, Christian, and someone outside of his caste and religion in general. As young as I was, I did understand that he had good reason to be concerned. From his stories in the past, I knew that he'd gone to a dark place because of their disapproval before, and so he knew what to anticipate. But what I didn't understand was just how deep this issue truly ran, how consuming it could become. Anyway, I am not from a Pentecostal background, and my church doesn't typically practice the laying on of hands very frequently. But if there was ever a time that I wanted to lay my hands on someone and pray, this was the time. Still, I didn't want to alarm him, so I prayed inwardly instead, for him to be saved from all of it. So, at the end of the night, Sam had to drive me home. I believe this particular night we were coming all the way from a city quite far from where I live, because of where we'd chosen to go for dinner. As I recall, it had been a long night, and when we arrived home, for some reason, still my family was out, so we went into the house alone. We sat on the couch, and there was this urgency in both of us about not being separated. I just remember that feeling that there were things to work through, things he couldn't even say, and there was this uneasiness in me about letting him go. So after talking and exchanging a few kisses, obviously, it was time for him to get on the road. I can't recall all the reasons for it. I just had such an uneasy feeling about him leaving that night. He kissed me goodbye and told me that he would call me when he got there safely. I lay down on my bed, suddenly very exhausted, and I fell asleep praying for him. I woke up to my phone ringing, and I shook my head, trying to pull myself out of a deep sleep, and I answered, expecting it to be Sam, and it was. What I wasn't expecting was what he said to me next. There had been an accident. Because I'd been in such a deep sleep, my memory is foggy, but I remember this. He sounded scared. So I was in shock, trying to understand how bad it was, partly to know if the car was drivable, partly because I was concerned that he might be more injured than he realized. I didn't respond with the calmness that he needed in that moment. I let him hear my worry. Well, when we got off the phone and had a plan for him to get help, I was angry at myself for not soothing his fear, letting my stress override my compassion. I may have even sounded upset with him, and I wasn't. I was just worried and feeling helpless. It felt like ages before I could be with him. But the accident wasn't bad, just enough to affect the car. But he was unharmed. But I had had the scare of my life until I knew he was okay. When I finally saw him the next day, I ran into his arms and held him close, telling him the night had been torture and how thankful I was he was okay. And my dad, who Sam had been afraid would be really angry with him for this accident, embraced him and told him he had been worried about him. He was so thankful he was okay. And my mother comforted him. We all reassured him that the apologies he kept trying to give were not necessary, that he had done nothing wrong. Now, are you ready for this? As it happened, the accident occurred near the end of his visit. God's timing here was a genius I did not foresee. What happened next, I could never have written myself. We drove to the airport that day that he had to return, together as a family. I obviously sat beside him as my dad drove. I held his hand, and I could feel something pivotal was happening inside him. I had no idea the extent of it, but what happened next would make me worship the Lord and weep with thanksgiving for weeks. So inside the airport, we prepared to say goodbye. The emotion between us was overwhelming. And then suddenly he turned to me and he said, the words that changed everything. Sorry, I had no idea that people like you and your family could exist. I don't feel deserving of your love or forgiveness, but I know I have it. And I just want to know this God that you serve. Whoever he is, I just want to give myself to him. How do I do that? That moment was surreal. I felt like my feet were no longer on the ground. I could hardly believe it. He just asked me to help him get saved. I think I took a minute to process before responding to him with my heart totally full, feeling like I was dreaming as I said to him that he could give himself to God right then, that I could help him pray to ask for salvation in that moment. He said yes to everything. So I took his hands and faced each other right there in the airport. He prayed and was saved. It was beautiful, a moment I will never forget. There was such sweetness in the realization that God had answered me again. I wish I could say that that moment led to a happily ever after, but it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. It was the beginning of transformation, the beginning of peeling back layers of hidden truths and lies, the beginning of learning, the beginning of fighting against God, and eventually surrendering. So come back for part 7, because in that part of my story, the truth begins to unravel. one layer at a time.